This is the instructional section of this DVD. We're going to talk about the basic positioning of all the 6 moves. First, we're going to start with stance. The stance is consistent with all 6 moves. That's why we're going to start there. We want to stand toes open, feet about shoulder width. That way we're opening up the hips. We want to determine where our hip crease is. We're not just bending forward at the waist, we're actually folding in half at the hip crease. So take the knife edge of your palms, place it where you think that crease is, and push your butt backwards. Now where your upper and lower half meet, that's the point at which I want you to focus on. I'm going to show you that from the side. So we're bifolding, we're not trifolding when we do our hip drive. Again, place it where you think your hip crease is, push backwards, and where your upper and lower half meet, that's the point at which I want you to focus. So when we do our hip drive, we push the butt backwards, hips forward. We're not doing squats, we're doing basically a deadlift motion. So it's fore and aft. As you get into swinging kettlebells and polish your technique, you can start adding a few slight changes to go after a different result. But right now, this is how I want you to learn hip drive. So think of the seam of your pants as your center line. When you push your butt backwards, your center line remains constant. My head is up, my chest is forward, my eyes are on the horizon line. When I drive forward, I'm just shifting in front of my center line now. So now my hips are my furthest point forward. Again, we talked about hip crease. That's the point at which I want you to focus. So my furthest point forward is indeed my hip crease. We refer to this as hip lockout. My knees, they're soft, so I'm never locking out there. They're soft, I'm locking out here. So again, butt back, hips forward. Now we do this as a ballistic movement. So we punch our hips fore and aft. It's not a lazy movement. It's not like we're getting up out of a chair. We're actually popping. This is where all of our power is coming from. The arm is just a hook, unless we specify that we're doing a pressing motion or we're holding that bell stationary. This is just a hook. We've got a pendulum effect here. We've got 2 limits. We got an upper limit and a lower limit. So when I'm holding onto my bell, my arm is nothing more than a hook, and I want to hit both limits. So I'm going to come up to chest level and allow my hand or that kettlebell to swing all the way through and hit its lower limit. That's how I reload my hips to send that bell back up to chest level. Now I'm going to introduce you to the bell. Bell body, pretty obvious. Horns to make up the handle. If I ever say bottoms up, this is what I'm referring to. So you grasp the horns and you hold that bottom up. Now, the proper way to hold on to this bell isn't necessarily grabbing it dead center. In fact, I want to start you off with a good habit right out of the gate. It's not as important with the swing, but if you start there, you'll always stay there, all right? So what we like to do is we like to grab thumb side of center. When we grab thumb side of center, when our bell comes up to shoulder position or above, the bell handle will fall at an angle across our palm. Very important. Because this is such a grip-dominant exercise, we want to take all opportunities to preserve our grip, strength, and integrity. So having that bell handle fall at an angle at our palm keeps us mechanically supported. Right now, I am bone on bone, and I can hold this as long as I need to hold this. Now, let me show you what it's like to hold this the improper way. So if I grab dead center on this handle and I come to same position, see how my wrist broke? Now my wrist is working. My forearm is doing the work as well. And this is going to give out before this gives out. So don't let this dictate the length of your workout. So I will cue you constantly about positioning of that handle. All right, so whenever you put that bell in your hand, grab thumb side of center. That way you won't make any mistake in hand positioning. When we do our swing, shoulders are square, we lean back at the top of our swing. I'm going to start with a little momentum. So a hike pass through the legs and pop my hips. Now again, I am not lifting this bell and I am not slowing it down. I'm going to show you what that looks like from the side. I'm going to switch hands too. So again, little hike pass, little momentum builder, and pop those hips. See how I'm hitting both limits, the upper and the lower limit in that pendulum movement? Very important. Now, if I was using my knees, if I bent my knees, did you see the stall occur? I'm going to show you again. So, right way, I'm bifolding. Watch when I trifold. Now, I have to generate a lot more force to get that bell back into a swing position. This is about energy cycle. We want to keep that energy cycle moving. We don't want it to die out and then have to build it back up again. That makes for a very difficult workout and a very inefficient workout. So that was the swing. Did you notice how I was leaning back? That's a rule. You lean back and you counter that kettlebell. I'll refer to that plenty. All right, so that's the swing.
Now let's practice what we just learned. Remember to keep your shoulders square. We want to drive the hips. We're not using the quads. This is hip driven. Swing that bell to chest level. Also, follow the bell through your legs. The arm is just a hook, so remember, we don't want to lift it and we don't want to slow it down. Next is the hand pass. When we do the hand pass, this allows us to switch from hand to hand without stopping. We switch at chest level, from palm to palm, and we lean back. That way, the bell will not walk us across the floor. Now let's practice the hand pass. When we do the hand pass, we switch at chest level. That bell is weightless at this point. We swing between each hand pass. We switch palm to palm and lean back.
Next is the clean. Same positioning, same stance. This is a finesse move. On our swing, we went through the legs, used a lot of hip drive. This is still hip driven, but now I'm going to bring my quads into the mix. So I'm going to drop down and stand up when I do this. Let me give you hand positioning first before I even pick the bell up. Got a really simple way to instruct this move, which can really, this one, you can overthink this one. So just do what I do once we get to that point. Thumb in the throat, very important. Arm is tight against the body. This is called rack position. That kettlebell will sit in this cradle. We get our hips forward, hips under the load. You'll hear that one too. So when we come to rack position, we are centered up. We're always working to center line. Bell drops down. We use a little leg drive, pop it back to rack. Now, for all of you out there that have been in the gym, have done conventional weight training, you've probably done a dumbbell curl. I'm going to show you what that dumbbell curl would look like with a kettlebell. We never do this with a kettlebell because it wasn't made to be used like this. This is called a rotating curl. So my thumb is forward. Very common gym exercise, doing a rotating curl. So now, in order to nail the clean, go ahead and place that bell in front of your body and do that same rotating curl. See how it rotated around my forearm, dropped into rack position, and then drop it. Curl it, drop it. Now I'm going to add a little body movement to it. It'll make this really easy. We don't want to muscle this, we want to use technique. So I'm going to get a little swing through my hips and use my legs to pull it into rack position. Again, I'll drop it down and do my rotating curl. What's important is you start your rotation immediately. So as soon as that bell comes through your legs, you are driving north and rotating around the forearm. You don't want to rotate too late because this is what will occur. See how it beat me in the shoulder? We want to avoid that. You do that enough times, you won't want to do this anymore. So, rotate immediately. Give it a nice soft landing. Just like so. See, my thumb is in my throat. Hand is open. Allows that bell handle to rotate freely. If you got the lockdown on this handle, you're going to impede that rotation, and it won't be smooth. So open the hand, let it rotate. I'm going to show you left hand. A little hike pass through the legs, and I'm using my quads to pull it straight up. That's the clean. Tricky one to get. If you can nail that one, you're going to breeze through the rest of these.
Now it's time to practice the clean. So we're going to start off in a rack position, which is thumb in the throat, the arm is tight against the body, and we want that hand open as well. Now when we drop, we let the bell rotate around the forearm. The bell will stay on center line. Now, as the bell swings through the legs, we want to stand it back up into place with our quads to get our hips back under the load. This brings us back to rack position and also gives us a nice soft landing.
Next, clean and press. Two distinct moves. So we're going to tack on the clean to the front of this, and now we're going to press. Our press from rack position again. We're maintaining center line. When I press up, I press straight up. I've got a slight rotation occurring in my palm. If you look, it's facing this way. As I press up, now it's facing you. Again. Good. It's like rounding off a punch. There's a lot of power when you round off a punch and you come straight out of the body. Same idea. We're rounding off our punch to the ceiling. Conventional weightlifting would have you do this and press out here. creates an unstable environment for the shoulder, also prone to injury. So don't press out here. That kettlebell is gonna sit on the back of your arm. So as soon as you get your arm away from your center line, it's gonna wanna do that to your shoulder joint. Your shoulder's only gonna take so much of that. So keep it in tight. This way we can recruit a lot of muscle to aid us in this exercise, but also we can keep our stabilizers nice and tight. All right, so when I clean, 2 distinct moves again. I stop at rack, and then I press. Watch my rotation, so I'm this way, and now I'm this way. At the top, I'm fully extended. My bicep is to my ear, and I am at lockout. I'm not leaving anything left in my elbow. This is muscular. We're going to talk about mechanical again. That is bone on bone. This is a resting position for some moves, believe it or not. See how my hand is open? That's right. So that bell handle can fall at an angle across my palm. So again, I drop down to rack, send it through my legs, re-clean it, and press. Bicep to my ear. I am at full lockout, and I am driving to the ceiling. So I'm not just letting it sit in my shoulder. I am reaching. Let me explain why that's important. If I leave it right here, it's just a shoulder exercise. If I fully extend, well, now what I've done is I've fired everything in this kinetic chain from my wrist to my hip. So this whole side of my body is alive and working. And don't think this side isn't doing anything. This side is stabilizing. So you're never completely at rest. You may be motionless, but something's going on at all times. So that's the clean and press.
Now let's practice the clean and press. We've already learned the clean. We're going to add a press to it. It's 2 distinct movements. So let's go ahead and start off in rack position. Remember, thumb in the throat. We're going to press straight up the center line. We want to go to full extension. Your cue here is bring your bicep to your ear. Keep that hand open and press directly to lockout. Don't leave any bend in the elbow. We want to reach for the ceiling.
Next is the squat. Same position. Might even take it a step or 2 wider. Think of having 2 kettlebells in your hand. Just enough room to pass them both through your legs is as wide as you want to be. Really no wider than that. When we do the squat, this is really a powerlifter's squat. This pulls the entire lower half into this movement. A conventional squat would have your knees a little closer together, and you would be dropping down into a quad and glute dominant exercise. Well, a kettlebell squat, because I'm opening up my hips, I'm engaging adductors. My hamstrings are pulled into the mix too. So I'm not just getting quads and glutes, I'm getting the whole lower half. We call this butt in the bucket. When we sit down, I'm reaching for an imaginary bucket behind me. I'm going to show you what that looks like from the side. So I am reaching back. This rule applies. Knees do not cross the toes. So we sit backwards. Keep that chest up, eyes at horizon line, and sit it back, butt in the bucket. When I stand up, I am finishing here. So here's my lockout. Remember hip lockout? This is where it applies as well. This is a great speed developer and power developer. If you're one of those athletes that you're required to have out of the hole speed and power, utilize this kind of squat. So now we take that bell, we place it in rack position. Rack is a position of rest as well. So if the bell is motionless, it's either in rack or it's at lockout. In this case, we're in rack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit my butt back in the bucket, and then I'm going to explode and finish with my hips. So butt in the bucket, boom, explode, boom. Just like so. Pretty easy, but you'll notice, not just the leg exercise, when you go down, your abs are engaging. There's a lot of ab activation. Plus, you're holding that bell and rack. We can't ignore the fact that this whole upper quadrant is fired and working as well. Great exercise. Personally, not one of my favorites, and you'll probably hear me gripe about it from time to time. They're hard. Squats are hard. Because we're odd loaded, we're on the front side, that bell's going to want to do this to your body. So you've got to resist and use even more muscle to drop down into the bucket position than just a normal squat that would have a barbell on your back. Very good.
And now it's time to practice the squat. Let's place the kettlebell in rack position. We want to drop straight down, keeping the upper body erect. Keep the chest forward and the eyes on the horizon line. As we drop down, we are sitting on an imaginary bucket behind us. When we stand, drive through the heels and come to complete lockout. Now, lockout is at the hips. It's not at the knees.
All right, on to our next one. Next one is the high pull. I like to refer to this one as an elbow strike, like throwing an elbow strike to somebody behind you. So if you can envision an imaginary target about shoulder level, maybe somebody's face coming up behind you, you throw that elbow strike and you stop it with intention and restart it. This is a swing. We're using our hips. A lot of hip drive on this one. So we're letting that pendulum motion hit its lower limit. Chase the bell through the legs. When the bell starts to rise, I am pulling with my elbow and hitting my stopping point. If you'll notice, my elbow's above my shoulder. I don't want you to think about pulling with your hand. Your hand's a hook. The elbow's the driver. The hips are the initiator. Think of this for positioning. We go arm up, straight back. That's your position. Let me show you what it looks like in motion. So again, I'm grabbing thumb side of center. Don't really need to, but it's a good habit. I'm going to start with a swing and pop my hips. Bang. Now, don't want you to over-rotate. That's what this would look like. This is not a trunk rotational exercise. So this is unnecessary. I don't want you overextending either through the shoulder. So stop it at shoulder position. That means, looking at me from the side, I've got alignment from my elbow to my shoulder, across my chest to my opposite shoulder. I'm not here. This will certainly exacerbate an injury in the front delt, so avoid that. All right, so that's the high pull. Again, I'm going to show you a few more just to sink that into your memory. And I'm popping my hips. It's a swing. Chase it through the legs. Good.
Now it's time to practice the high pull. This move requires a big hip drive. Don't over-rotate through the trunk. I want you to pull with your elbow, not with your hand. Your hand is just a hook. At the top of the movement, we want the elbow above the shoulder, and as it falls, chase the bell through your legs.
There's an order to these moves. There are 6 of them. We're at number 6 now. It's the snatch. So we learned the swing, the clean and press, the squat, the high pull, and now the snatch. And the strategy behind that is the swing is the most basic. The snatch is the most technical. So all these other pieces you've plugged in from 1 to 6 are key elements in learning how to get to 6. Doing the high pull, that's the 3/4 mark for doing the snatch. When we did the swing, that bell stopped at chest level. When we did the high pull, that bell stopped at about face level. When we do the snatch, we want to swing it and get it to stop just above the head. Now, that doesn't mean you're done with the move. That just means you need to transition from there to extension. And the easiest way to think about this is as if you're pulling your arms straight up your body. You don't want to straight arm this. You want to have a bend in your elbow. It allows room to extend or punch to the ceiling. Keep it in tight to the body. If you straight arm this, it's a radial motion from start to finish. So when I get here, if I'm still radial, that motion's going to want to continue. It's going to become circular. And you can imagine what this would feel like on the shoulder after you did it, just a few short exertions. So we're changing that direction. We're going vertical. It's still hip driven. In fact, there's more hips involved in this one than any other move. As you fatigue, this is one of those exercises that you're going to want to start muscling. Don't do it. I'll cue you all the time. Hip drive, hip drive, hip drive. You'll probably get sick of me saying that. In fact, at some point, you're probably going to want to turn off or mute my voice when you're doing this workout. And that's fine, but I would encourage you from time to time to turn it back up again, to listen to my cues. I'm not going to hit you with a bunch of random garbage and just talk about silly things. I'm going to talk about your technique. And these are cues that even the most advanced, even the pros need to hear from time to time. Because as you fatigue, you start to throw technique out the window, and what do? We revert back to doing it the meathead way. We try to muscle it. This is not for meatheads. This is not for meatheads. This is technique driven. So I'm going to show you what that snatch looks like. Now I'm going to do this in 2 steps. Doesn't mean that every time you do the snatch, you should do it in 2 steps, but I would certainly encourage that you do it like that right now. So go ahead and grab your bell. Now I'm going to swing this bell, and I'm going to get it weightless above my head. I'm still going to have a bend in my elbow. Like I said, 2 steps. So my swing is here. See the bend in my elbow? Now, I don't want to be like this. This is straight arm. So I'm pulling it up my body, up my center line. Now watch what I do now. I just finished it off. I extended my arm with intention, and I punched to the ceiling. You see how my hand opened up? It's imperative. Open that hand, let that bell rotate. I didn't even feel it hit my forearm. So to send it back down, I close my hand, and it just falls. It's a nice, smooth motion. A lot of power involved in this, a lot of grace. We do a lot of snatches. This is one of those defining moves of kettlebell training. So you may put some of those others on the shelf and not do it, but I would encourage you to continue to do this. So again, I am pulling with my elbow straight up, and at weightless point, I'm punching.
And now it's time to practice the snatch. Just like the high pull, it requires a tremendous amount of hip drive. We want to swing this bell to a weightless point above the head. Now, rather than straight arming it, we want to keep a slight bend in the elbow and pull it straight up our center line as if we're zipping a zipper. At the weightless point, we're going to punch to the ceiling. We want to extend to full lockout, which is bicep to the ear, and an open palm.
So get ready. We're going to put all those instructional tips to the test. I think you're going to enjoy this.